Our world is more complex and bizarre than we may even imagine. These discoveries that we'll be covering today may be creepy or even shrouded in some kind of mystery, but one thing's for certain, there's more where that came from. Scientists are constantly researching and finding out new things every day to help our world move forward and have a better understanding of the past. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 historical discoveries. Central African lyre made from human skull. When you think of modern day instruments like guitars or even trumpets, it would be easy to tell what materials they're made from. Woods, brass and other metals. However, some instruments seem to have odd components that aren't easily discernible to an untrained eye. For instance, violin bows are made of horsehair, and violin strings are often made of animal intestines, which may come as a shock if you don't play an instrument within the violin family. In our modern era, it's not as common anymore to use animal products in the making of instruments, as synthetic and vegan options have become widely used for pieces traditionally composed of animal products. The same is not true for the early era instruments. Unlike now where we can more easily create synthetic products, earlier humans had to use the materials that were actively available to them. While this included woods and metals, this also included wildlife, and people often made instruments out of animal parts. For example, early drums were made using animal skins, and early flutes were made with bones. The specific instrument we'll be looking at today is the lyre, which is a stringed instrument known for its prominence in ancient Greece. The lyre is no exception when it comes to being composed of animal parts, but one Central African lyre in particular once featured in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, as it truly sets itself apart from any other instrument. The unique stringed instrument is made from a human skull, with some of the other parts of the instrument consisting of animal parts. It has antelope horns for the traditional U-shape of the lyre, antelope guts for the strings, but the base of the instrument is a human skull. The skull was modified for the instrument. The top part of the skull was removed and replaced with animal skin to create a flat, playable surface, and the strings were anchored to the instrument through the eye sockets. The instrument is an unsettling reminder that this skull once belonged to a person, as it has what looks like the original human hair still attached to it. This 19th century instrument used to be on display at the Metropolitan Museum of Art before the 80s, but this piece now resides in storage. Other than its place of origin, which is believed to be South Africa when first catalogued in 1906, very little is known about the lyre. While it may have been used for spiritual purposes or in a ritual, the Metropolitan Museum of Art speculates the lyre may have just been a sensational item made by a clever indigenous entrepreneur for trade and profit with Europeans. Polish vampire burials. These days, when you think of pests, you're likely to think of ants, cockroaches, mice, and creatures of that type. In the 17th and 18th century of Poland, on the other hand, one feared pest was the vampire. Folklore on vampires was likely introduced to European countries in the 11th century, but after researchers unearthed bodies from vampire burial grounds, it's apparent how these supposed creatures impacted their lives and how exterminating them was a serious deal. When you hear the word vampire, you might think of their most notable traits, like having no reflection, being susceptible to garlic, and not being able to see within the sunlight. Or maybe you think of the many popular vampire books or movies. However, the way we think of vampires now, and the way they're portrayed in current media, isn't really how vampires were thought of in medieval Europe, and later on in Europe during the 17th and 18th century. During 17th and 18th century Poland, vampirism was mainly only a worry after someone had died. The belief was that certain circumstances, or impure lifestyles, could leave a dead person as a vampire. There were several things that could happen to a person that could lead them to become a vampire post-mortem, including, but not limited to, dying of a contagious disease such as cholera, being an alcoholic, having something strange happen to them at birth, having a birthmark, or from being out of town. The suspicion was that if someone became a vampire after their death, they could bring misfortune to the nearby area, whether it be a plague, a drought, or failed crops. When someone died and these kind of hardships had occurred, blame was immediately put on the recently passed. Communities certainly didn't want vampires to rise from the dead and wreak havoc on their town. To prevent this, they had what's now known as vampire burials. Vampire burials are also referred to as funerary rites. When a body of a possible vampire was buried in the ground, they'd be buried with strategically placed instruments on their body that could kill a vampire. A large rock was placed on the vampire's throat, causing them to choke and thwart their attempts to get out of the ground, placing a sickle around their neck or stomach to cease them from moving and would wound them when they were trying to get up. Regardless, if a person would or wouldn't become a vampire after they died, making sure the reanimated corpse of a vampire would be killed before the vampire could get out gave the Polish villagers peace of mind. Mount Vesuvius eruption turned victims' brain to glass. Italy is a picturesque European country, known for its many facets of culture, including art, food, wine, architecture, and of course its rich history. Popular historical destinations include the Colosseum, the Vatican, and the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but Italy also has an extremely dark past, especially due to mainland Europe's only active volcano. This is Mount Vesuvius. Situated on the scenic west coast of Italy, near the city of Naples, the volcano sits peacefully, as if it's a mountain, not having erupted in over 70 years. However, Mount Vesuvius's lack of activity cannot take away from the fact it's incredibly dangerous. Mount Vesuvius is what's known as a stratovolcano, which is a volcano built on layers of alternating lava flow, ash, and blocks of stone with magma reservoir beneath the surface. Because of its makeup and immense pressure that builds within the volcano due to gases and magma, stratovolcanoes are the most violent types of volcano, and eruptions can lead to absolute ruin. The tragic eruption of Mount Vesuvius we'll be discussing today is the most notable in history, taking place in 79 AD. You've most likely heard of Pompeii, a bustling ancient Roman city devastated by the volcano's eruption. For hundreds of years, what happened at Pompeii has been intensely studied. What happened to the victims of this national catastrophe is still researched and discussed today. However, Pompeii wasn't the only victim of Mount Vesuvius's wrath. Herculaneum, another Roman city close to Pompeii, located near Mount Vesuvius, was also destroyed during the volcano's eruption in 79 AD. Much like the ruins of Pompeii, the remains that researchers have uncovered have been shocking. One discovery was found in a victim's skull, which was black glass where his brain once was. While there are many theories as to what killed the people fleeing from the erupted volcano, such as pyroclastic flow, which appeared as avalanches of hot ash and gas, a glass brain had never been discovered at these excavation sites. Brain matter is rarely found at ancient sites, and not only had this discovery never been seen on this site before, it'd never been seen at all. According to the lead author on this study, Dr. Pier Paolo Petrone, this is the first ever discovery of human brain remains vitrified by heat. Vitrification is the process of which something is melted into a liquid and then quickly cooled, turning it into a solid gas. While disconcerting to think about what happened to this young man's brain, the vitrified brain provides more insight to the tragedy of both Herculaneum and Pompeii. In order for something to be vitrified, as mentioned, it must be melted, leaving the question, what temperature melts a human brain? After analysing charred wood near the body, experts believe the heat of the location he was found in reached 968 degrees Fahrenheit, or 520 degrees Celsius. This finding leads to even more questions. Most importantly, why was only this man's brain turned to glass? What makes this individual unique as to why it only happened to him? Some experts are dedicated to learning more about Mount Vesuvius's eruption, but the truth may never be found. Our world is more complex and bizarre than we may even imagine, And though these discoveries may be creepy, or even shrouded in mystery, one thing is for certain: there's more to where that came from. So what do you make of these past discoveries? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and help us by growing this community, whilst working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.